Captain Zara Velton pressed her palm against the cold metal wall of the bridge and felt the vibrations that should not be there. The Starweaver was dying around her and she knew it. The research vessel had been her home for 3 years as she led scientific missions into the far reaches of space. Now it might become her tomb. The quantum drive had failed 18 hours ago with a sound like thunder tearing through metal. Dr. Elena Korath had been in the engine bay when it happened. She came running to the bridge with burns on her hands and terror in her eyes. The cascade failure had destroyed not just the main drive but damaged the backup systems too. They were stranded in the void sector with emergency power and whatever air they had left in the recycling systems. Zara looked around the bridge at her crew. 12 beings from 5 different worlds had come together for this mission, to study ancient star formations. Lieutenant Nexus stood at the navigation console with his forearms moving over the controls. His Cytherian people were known for their skill with star charts and navigation, but even he could not plot a course without engines. Dr. Theron Cass sat at the science station running calculations on his tablet. The Valdorian physicist had been excited about this mission for months. Now his large eyes reflected the red emergency lights as he worked to find some solution to their problem. Elena climbed back onto the bridge after another trip to the engine bay. Her uniform was torn and she had new burns on her arms. She shook her head when Zara looked at her with questioning eyes. The repairs were not going well. Elena had been working without sleep since the failure happened. She was their best hope of getting the engines working again, but even she was starting to look defeated. The void sector earned its name honestly. It was a region of space between the major star systems where few ships traveled. There were no colonies here and no regular patrol routes. Most captains avoided the area because there was nothing here worth the risk. That was exactly why the Galactic Scientific Consortium had sent them here. The ancient stellar formations they were studying existed in this empty space precisely because no one had disturbed them. Now that emptiness felt like a curse. Elena had estimated they had maybe 48 hours before the air recyclers failed completely. The emergency power would last longer, but without clean air it would not matter. Zara had sent out distress signals on all frequencies when the drive first failed. Standard protocol required any ship in the area to respond, but there should not be any ships in the area. That was the whole point of the void sector. The communications officer was a young Andrexian named Kilo. His people had sensitive hearing that made them excellent at picking up weak signals. He had been monitoring all frequencies since they sent the first distress call. Every few hours he would shake his head when Zara looked at him. No response. No help coming. They were alone in the dark between the stars. Zara tried to keep her crew focused on survival tasks. They rationed food and water. They shut down all non-essential systems to save power. The science team worked with Elena to see if any of their research equipment could be modified to help with repairs. Dr. Cass had some ideas about using their stellar analysis, tools to boost the communication array. It was a desperate plan, but desperation was all they had left. The temperature on the bridge was dropping as the life support systems struggled. Zara could see her breath in the air. Her crew was trying to stay busy, but she could feel their hope fading. Some of them had families waiting back home. Others were young scientists at the start of their careers. None of them had signed up to die in the empty space between worlds. Zara felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her like the cold dark outside their hull. Elena came back to the bridge again after 36 hours of trying to fix the impossible. This time she did not even try to hide her tears. The quantum drive core was completely destroyed. The backup systems were damaged beyond repair with the tools and parts they had available. She had done everything she could think of and some things that should not have been possible. Nothing worked. They were going to die out here. That was when Kilo suddenly sat up straight at his console. His large ears moved forward and he pressed his hands against his headphones. His eyes went wide and he started adjusting controls with shaking fingers. The bridge fell silent as everyone watched him work. After a moment, he looked up at Zara with an expression of complete shock. A voice came through the bridge speakers that none of them had expected to hear. It was strong and confident and spoke perfect galactic standard with an accent they recognized but had never heard in deep space. The voice said words that seemed impossible given their location in the void sector. It said words that offered hope when they had given up hope. It said words that would change everything. They thought they knew about the newest members of the Galactic community Starweaver. This is the Defiant. Storm. We have received your distress call and are adjusting course to assist. Hold tight because help is coming. Commander Jake Morrison speaking, and we will have you out of there soon. Please respond with your current status and crew count. We are 17 hours out from your position and closing fast. Defiant storm out. The bridge was completely silent for a long moment. Zara stared at the communication console as if it had just performed magic. Elena stopped crying and looked confused. Dr. Cass dropped his tablet. Lieutenant Nexus, all four of his arms froze over his controls. Kilo adjusted his headphones and played the message again to make sure he had heard correctly. Humans. A human ship had answered their distress call. But humans were the newest species in the galactic community. They'd only achieved interstellar travel 30 years ago. Their ships were considered basic, and their technology was primitive compared to most other species. What was a human vessel doing in the void sector, where even experienced captains feared to travel? And how could they possibly help when the most advanced engineers in the galaxy had failed? But hope was hope, and Zara was not going to question it. She took the communication headset from Kilo and responded to the human ship. Her voice was steady despite the emotions churning inside her. Defiant Storm, this is Captain Zara Velton of the research vessel Starweaver. We have 12 crew members and are experiencing total engine failure. Our life support systems will fail in approximately 12 hours. We are grateful for your assistance and await your arrival. Starweaver out. Captain Zara Velton could not believe what she was hearing. A human ship. Out here in the middle of nowhere. It made no sense. Dr. Theron Cass moved closer to the communication station. Captain, are you sure they said human? Their technology is very basic. How could they reach us so quickly? Zara had the same question. Humans were new to space travel. Their ships were slow and simple compared to the advanced vessels of older galactic civilizations. Most people thought of humans as friendly but not very capable. Elena, Zara called to her engineer. Run the numbers. How far would a ship have to travel to reach us in 18 hours? Elena's hands moved over her controls. Her eyes went wide as she read the results. Captain, they would have to be traveling at least 4 times normal cruise speed. That's impossible for most ships. Even our own vessel could not maintain that pace for long. Maybe they were closer than we thought, said Lieutenant Nexus. But he did not sound convinced. The void sector was empty. Everyone knew that. No trade routes. No colonies. No reason for anyone to be here. Hours passed slowly. The crew tried to stay busy and save power, but everyone kept looking at the long-range sensors, waiting for the first sign of their rescuers. Dr. Sarah Kim brought hot soup to the bridge crew. I've been thinking, she said quietly to Zara. What if this is some kind of mistake? What if they can't really help us? Zara had wondered the same thing, but she pushed the doubt away. Right now, they are our only hope. We have to believe they know what they are doing. 16 hours after the first contact, Nexus called out from his station. Captain, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. It's moving fast. Very fast. Everyone gathered around the sensor display. A small dot moved across the screen. The computer calculated its speed and distance. Elena checked the numbers twice. How is that possible? Elena whispered. They've covered the distance from the nearest jump point in just 16 hours. That should take 3 days minimum. The dot on the screen grew larger. Soon they could see it was definitely a ship. But it looked different from any vessel in their databases. The hull was dark gray with strange angles. It looked built for strength rather than beauty. Starweaver, this is Commander Morrison on the Defiant Storm. We are approaching your position. Please prepare for rescue operations. Zara keyed the communication system. Defiant Storm, we are ready. What do you need from us? Just sit tight and let us work. We'll have you fixed up in no time. The human ship moved closer. It was bigger than Zara had expected. As long as the Starweaver, but much thicker. The hull was covered with equipment she did not recognize. Extra sensor arrays, weapon mounts, heavy cargo doors. This is not a research vessel, Dr. Cass said. Look at those weapon systems. This is a military ship. That explained the speed, Zara thought. Military ships had better engines and stronger hulls. They could push harder and faster than civilian vessels. But what was a human warship doing out here? The Defiant Storm moved alongside the Starweaver with careful precision. Mechanical arms extended from its hull. They reached out and gently grabbed onto the disabled research ship. Zara felt a slight vibration as the two vessels connected. Starweaver, we're going to send some people over to look at your systems. Is your docking port operational? Elena checked her status board. The docking port has power. We can open it. Good. Stand by for boarding. Zara made her way to the docking port with Elena and Nexus. They waited as the human ship extended a connecting tube. There was a soft thump as it locked into place. The airlock opened and 3 humans floated through. They moved with confidence in the low gravity. The first one was tall with short brown hair and the uniform of a ship commander. The second was a woman with dark hair and engineer's tools on her belt. The third was older with medical equipment. Captain Velton? The first human asked. I'm Commander Jake Morrison. This is Lieutenant Katie Chen, our chief engineer, and Dr. Paul Wright, our medical officer. Zara nodded. Thank you for coming. I have to ask, what brings a human military ship to the Void Sector? Morrison smiled. We patrol out here. Someone has to keep an eye on the empty places. You never know when someone might need help. He looked around at the dim corridors. Speaking of which, let's get your ship running again. Katie, Lieutenant Chen stepped forward. I'd like to see your engine room. Dr. Wright can check on your crew's health while we work. Elena led them through the ship. Zara watched the humans work. They moved quickly but carefully. They asked good questions and seemed to understand the Starweaver systems better than she would have expected. In the engine room, Chen examined the dead quantum drive. She used her own scanner to check the damage. This is bad but not hopeless. The core is melted, but the containment fields are still intact. We can work with this. Elena stared at her. You can fix a quantum drive? But your people have only been in space for 30 years, Chen grinned. 30 years of fixing everything that breaks. We get good at it fast. Morrison, I'm going to need some parts from our cargo bay. Whatever you need, Morrison replied. Danny and his team are already suiting up to come over. More humans arrived. Chief Petty Officer Danny Rodriguez brought a team of engineers. They carried strange tools and boxes of parts. They set up workstations in the engine room and started taking apart the damaged systems. Zara had never seen anything like it. The humans worked with an energy and confidence that amazed her. They did not hesitate or second-guess themselves. They just got to work and started fixing things. How do they know so much about our technology? Elena whispered to Zara. Zara did not have an answer, but she was starting to think that maybe the galaxy had underestimated these humans. Maybe there was more to them than anyone realized. Elena Korath could not stop staring. Chief Petty Officer Danny Rodriguez was deep inside the quantum drive core, doing things that should have been impossible. He had his hands inside mechanisms that most engineers would never dare to touch. How does he know where those parts go? Elena asked. Lieutenant Chen looked up from her workstation. Danny has been fixing engines since he was 12 years old. Started with ground vehicles, then aircraft, then spacecraft. He can make anything work. Elena watched Rodriguez pull out a melted component and replace it with something from the human ship. The new part looked different, simpler, but when he connected it, the power readings on her screen jumped up. That's not how quantum drives work, Elena said. You can't just swap in random parts. Rodriguez grinned at her from inside the engine housing. Maybe not the way you were taught. But energy is energy. Matter is matter. If you understand the basics, you can make it work. He connected another component. This one was clearly human-made. Thick and heavy where the original had been thin and delicate. It looked crude, but the power output was steady. Specialist Amanda Torres was working on the life support systems. She had connected human equipment to the Starweaver's air recyclers. The jury-rigged setup looked like it should not work, but the air was getting cleaner and fresher. Your people have a very different approach to engineering, Dr. Theron Cass said to Commander Morrison. Most species follow strict protocols. Use only approved parts. Test everything multiple times. Morrison nodded. That works fine when you have time and resources. Out here you use what you have and make it work. Our engineers are taught to adapt and overcome. Captain Zara watched the humans work. They moved with confidence and speed. When they ran into problems, they did not stop to consult manuals or call for advice. They just found another way to solve it. Communications Officer Ryan Burke was helping Lieutenant Nexus with the ship's sensor array. Burke had brought a portable communication unit from the human ship. He was connecting it to the Starweaver's systems. This will give you better range and signal strength, Burke explained. Our equipment is designed for long-distance operations. Works well in places like the Void Sector. Nexus was amazed by the human approach. You are changing our entire communication system. What if something goes wrong? Burke smiled. Then we fix it. That's what we do. We fix things until they work. Dr. Paul Wright had checked on all the crew members. He gave them vitamins and medicine to help with the stress of the emergency. But he also spent time talking to people, making sure they were okay mentally as well as physically. Your medical officer is very thorough, Dr. Sarah Kim told Commander Morrison. Most ship doctors just check vital signs and move on. Paul believes in taking care of the whole person, Morrison replied. A crisis like this can affect people in ways that don't show up on scanners. Better to catch problems early. Hours passed. The humans worked without stopping. They did not complain about the cold or the dim lighting. They did not ask for breaks or special food. They just kept working until the job was done. Elena found herself working alongside Lieutenant Chen. The human engineer explained what she was doing as she worked. Elena learned more about practical engineering in a few hours than she had in years of formal training. The key is understanding what each component really does, Chen said as she rewired a power coupling. Not just what the manual says it does, but what it actually accomplishes. Once you know that, you can substitute other parts that do the same job. Elena watched Chen connect a human power cell to the Starweaver's main grid. That connection should not be compatible. The voltage is different. The frequency is wrong. Chen pointed to a small device she had installed between the two systems. This converter changes the power to match what your ship needs. We always carry adapters and converters. Makes it easier to work with different technologies. The lights on the bridge got brighter as more power flowed through the ship. Captain Zara felt hope growing in her chest. These humans were actually doing it. They were bringing her ship back to life. Rodriguez called out from the engine room. Commander, I think we're ready to try a restart. The quantum drive should be stable now. Morrison nodded. Do it. Everyone gathered in the engine room. Elena held her breath as Rodriguez activated the restart sequence. Warning lights flashed. Power levels climbed. The quantum containment field shimmered to life. Then the drive core began to hum. A deep, steady sound that meant everything was working properly. The lights on Elena's control panel turned from red to green one by one. We have full power, Elena announced. All systems are online. The quantum drive is stable and ready for travel. The alien crew cheered and hugged each other. Dr. Wright smiled and shook hands with everyone. Torres packed up her tools with satisfaction. Burke tested the new communication system and gave a thumbs up, but Rodriguez was not finished. He was still working inside the drive housing. Just making a few improvements, he called out. These modifications should give you better efficiency and reliability. Elena checked her readings. The quantum drive was not just working. It was working better than it ever had before. Power output was up 15%. Energy consumption was down 10%. The drive would last longer and perform better. How did you improve our engine? She asked Rodriguez. Rodriguez climbed out of the housing and wiped his hands on a rag. Your original design was good but conservative. Built for safety rather than performance. Our modifications keep it safe but let it run more efficiently. Captain Zara looked around at her repaired ship. Everything was working. The air was clean. The lights were bright. The engines were ready. In just 12 hours, the humans had not only saved them, but made their ship better than before. Commander Morrison, Zara said, I don't know how to thank you. You have saved our lives and our mission. Morrison smiled. No thanks needed. This is what we do. Help people who need it. Would you like to join us for dinner on the Defiant Storm? I think my crew would enjoy meeting yours. Zara nodded. She was very curious to learn more about these remarkable humans. They had shown skills and determination that challenged everything she thought she knew about their species. Commander Jake Morrison invited Captain Zara Velton to join him for dinner aboard the Defiant Storm after the repairs were completed. Zara accepted the invitation partly out of courtesy but mostly out of curiosity. She wanted to understand how humans had managed to reach them so quickly and why they were in the void sector in the first place. The answers she received would change everything she thought she knew about humanity's role in the galaxy. The human ship's interior was as surprising as its exterior. The corridors were wide and practical with sturdy handholds and clear sightlines. Everything was built for function rather than appearance, but somehow that made it more impressive rather than less. Zara could feel the solid construction under her feet and see the careful attention to detail in every system. This was a ship designed by people who understood that lives depended on reliability. The dining area was small but comfortable with a table that could seat 8 people. Morrison served a simple meal of human food that was surprisingly good. Dr. Paul Wright and Lieutenant Katie Chen joined them for dinner, along with Communications Officer Ryan Burke. The conversation started with technical discussions about the repairs but soon moved to more fundamental questions about human presence in deep space. Zara asked Morrison what his ship was doing in the void sector where most captains feared to travel. The human commander explained that the Defiant Storm was not a research vessel or commercial transport. It was a military patrol craft assigned to deep space reconnaissance and emergency response. Human ships regularly operated in regions that other species considered too dangerous or unprofitable to patrol. Morrison pulled up a star chart on his tablet and showed Zara the patrol routes that human ships followed. The routes covered vast areas of empty space between the major star systems, places where pirates might hide or where ships could get into trouble far from help. The human fleet maintained a network of rapid response vessels specifically designed to reach crisis situations quickly. Dr. Wright explained that this was not the first rescue mission the Defiant Storm had completed. They had saved a Thraxian colony ship from raiders 6 months ago when the colonists sent out a distress call. Last year they evacuated a damaged Zephyrian research station before a nearby star went nova. The human ships responded to any emergency signal, regardless of which species needed help. Chen shared the story of their most difficult rescue, involving a luxury passenger liner that had been attacked by pirates near the Frontier Nebula. The human crew had fought off the attackers and then spent 3 days repairing the liner's engines, while other ships avoided the area because it was still dangerous. They did not leave until every passenger was safe and the ship could reach port. Under its own power, Zara began to understand that the human approach to deep space operations was fundamentally different from other species. Most galactic civilizations focused their efforts on established trade routes and developed systems where the risks were manageable and the profits were reliable. Humans actively sought out the dangerous unexplored regions where emergencies were most likely to happen and help was least likely to be available. Burke explained the philosophy behind human patrol operations. Someone needed to be in the empty spaces between civilized worlds because that was where people got into trouble. Pirates operated in remote areas because they could attack and escape before help arrived. Explorers and researchers went to dangerous places because that was where new discoveries were made. When disasters happened in those places, someone needed to be close enough to respond quickly. Morrison told Zara about the experimental drive modifications that had allowed them to reach the Starweaver so quickly. Human engineers had developed new quantum field techniques that increased travel speed, but also increased the risk of engine failure. Most species would not accept those risks, but humans were willing to push boundaries when lives were at stake. The modifications were only used for emergency response missions. The conversation revealed something that impressed Zara more than all the technical achievements she had witnessed. The humans did not patrol dangerous space for profit or territorial expansion, or even scientific research. They did it because they believed someone should be there when disasters happened. They had taken on the responsibility of being the first responders for the entire galaxy without being asked and without expecting recognition. Wright shared statistics that demonstrated the scope of human rescue operations. In the past 5 years, human ships had responded to over 300 emergency calls from vessels belonging to dozens of different species. They had saved thousands of lives and recovered billions of credits worth of cargo and equipment. Most of these rescues happened in remote areas where no other help was available. Chen explained that human military doctrine emphasized mobility and rapid response rather than massive firepower or territorial control. Their ships were designed to get to trouble spots quickly and deal with whatever problems they found there. This required crews that could adapt to any situation and equipment that could be modified for unexpected uses. Flexibility was more important than raw capability. Zara asked why other species had not noticed the extent of human patrol activities. Morrison explained that humans did not publicize their rescue operations or seek credit for their achievements. They filed reports with the appropriate authorities, but did not use their successes for political or economic advantage. They simply did the work that needed to be done and moved on to the next crisis. The dinner conversation helped Zara understand why the human rescue had been so efficient and professional. This was not a lucky accident or exceptional effort. This was what human crews did every day in the dark spaces between worlds. They had developed their skills through years of practice dealing with emergencies that would challenge the most experienced pilots and engineers in the galaxy. Burke showed Zara the communication logs that demonstrated the coordination between human patrol vessels. When one ship received a distress call, the entire network was notified instantly. If the closest ship could not respond, then another would be dispatched immediately. The system ensured that help was always available somewhere, even in the most remote regions of space. As the evening concluded, Morrison walked Zara back to the airlock connecting their ships. He mentioned casually that the Defiant Storm would continue patrolling the Void sector for another 3 weeks before returning to port for resupply. There were 2 more emergency response ships operating in adjacent sectors and a heavy rescue vessel stationed near the Frontier Nebula. The humans had quietly established a safety net that covered vast areas of dangerous space. Zara returned to her own ship with a completely new understanding of humanity's role in the galactic community. She had always thought of humans as enthusiastic newcomers, trying to find their place among more established civilizations. Now she realized that humans had already found their place by taking on responsibilities that other species had ignored or abandoned. They had become the guardians of the empty spaces where others feared to go. Captain Zara Velton stood on the bridge of the Starweaver and watched the Defiant Storm prepare to disconnect from their ship. The past 24 hours had transformed not just her vessel, but her entire understanding of the species she had thought she knew. The humans were preparing to return to their patrol duties as if rescuing a stranded ship in the Void sector was the most ordinary thing in the world. Dr. Elena Korath ran her final diagnostics on the quantum drive system and shook her head in amazement. The human modifications had not just repaired the cascade failure damage, but had actually improved the drive's efficiency by 15%. The harmonic distortions that had plagued the system for months were completely gone. Rodriguez had left detailed maintenance notes that would help Elena keep the drive running perfectly for years to come. Lieutenant Nexus reported that all navigation systems were operating at optimal levels. The humans had recalibrated sensors that Elena had not even realized were out of adjustment. The star charts were displaying with greater accuracy than they had shown since the ship was first commissioned. Even the artificial gravity generators were running more smoothly after the human engineers adjusted their field harmonics. Dr. Theron Cass was already planning modifications to his research equipment based on suggestions from the human technicians. They had shown him ways to improve data collection that would make his stellar formation studies more accurate and efficient. The humans had treated his scientific work with the same serious attention they gave to life-threatening emergencies. Their help would benefit his research for years to come. The communications array was functioning better than it ever had thanks to Burke's modifications. Kilo, the communications officer, had learned new techniques for signal processing that would help him detect weak transmissions from much greater distances. The humans had shared their knowledge freely as if they wanted every ship in the galaxy to benefit from what they had learned through years of rescue operations. Commander, Morrison contacted the Starweaver bridge one final time before departing. His voice carried the same calm confidence that had given them hope during their darkest hours. Captain Velton, we are ready to disconnect and continue our patrol. Your ship is fully operational and actually running better than our initial scans indicated. Are there any final questions or concerns before we depart? Zara thanked Morrison and his crew for everything they had done. She tried to express what the rescue meant to her and her crew, but words seemed inadequate. The humans had not just saved their lives, but had done it with such skill and generosity that the experience had changed how she thought about the galaxy. Morrison simply replied that they were glad to help and wished the Starweaver crew safe travels. The mechanical arms retracted smoothly, and the Defiant Storm began to pull away from the Starweaver. Zara watched through the main view screen as the human ship oriented itself toward the deep void, where other emergencies might be waiting. The warship's engines flared to life, and it accelerated away with the same impressive speed that had brought it to their rescue so quickly. Elena brought the Starweaver's quantum drive online and felt the familiar vibration as the field stabilized. But this time the vibration was smooth and steady, without the irregular harmonics that had been present for months. The drive responded to her commands with precision that reminded her of when the ship was brand new. The humans had given her a better ship than she had lost to the cascade failure. As the Starweaver resumed its research mission, Zara found herself thinking about the implications of what she had learned. Humans were not the primitive newcomers that most species believed them to be. They were the unsung guardians of the galaxy's most dangerous regions. While other civilizations focused on profitable trade routes and safe territories, humans patrolled the empty spaces where disasters happened and help was needed most. The human approach to technology was different but not inferior. Where other species pursued complexity and sophistication, humans focused on reliability and adaptability. Their ships were built to operate for months without support in hostile environments. Their crews were trained to solve any problem with whatever resources were available. Their philosophy emphasized practical results over theoretical perfection. Zara began drafting her official report to the Galactic Scientific Consortium about the engine failure and rescue. But she also started composing a personal recommendation that she would send to colleagues throughout the galaxy. When planning deep space missions in dangerous regions, smart captains should request coordinates for human patrol vessels. Not because humans had the most advanced technology, but because they had something more valuable. Humans offered absolute certainty that they would answer when called. They would come without hesitation regardless of the danger or difficulty involved. They would work without rest until the problem was solved and everyone was safe. They would share their knowledge and improve your ship while saving your life. They would do all of this without expecting recognition or reward because helping others was simply what they did. Dr. Cass interrupted, her thoughts to report that they had reached the stellar formation they came to study. The research mission could continue thanks to the human rescue and the improvements to their equipment. Elena confirmed that all systems were operating perfectly, and they could remain on station for as long as needed to complete their observations. Zara authorized the start of their research operations. She made a mental note to add something to her personal logs. The next time anyone asked her about humans, she would tell them the truth. Humans were not primitive or inexperienced. They were the people who went to the places others feared to go and stayed there until everyone was safe. They were the answer to every distress call and the reason no one was ever truly lost in the dark between the stars. The Starweaver settled into its research orbit around the ancient stellar formation while somewhere in the depths of the void sector the Defiant Storm continued its patrol. Commander Morrison and his crew were already scanning for the next emergency signal that would require their unique combination of skill, courage, and determination. They would answer that call just as they had answered every call before it. In the command center of a dozen different species ships scattered throughout the galaxy, similar rescue stories were being logged and reported. A human vessel had saved a mining operation from equipment failure. Another had evacuated colonists before a planetary disaster. A third had fought off pirates to protect a research expedition. The pattern was always the same and the outcome was always successful. Zara smiled as she realized that the galaxy was safer than most people knew. Not because of advanced technology or sophisticated defense systems, but because of human crews who had quietly taken on the responsibility of being where they were needed most. They patrolled the dangerous empty spaces and answered every call for help, without condition or hesitation. They were the guardians that no one had asked for but everyone needed. The final entry in Zara's personal log would be simple, but profound. Today we learned that being lost in deep space was not the terrifying experience we thought it was. As long as humans were patrolling the void, no one was ever truly alone. Help would always come, and it would come without hesitation because that was what humans did. They were the answer to every distress call, and the reason hope never died in the dark between the stars.